Hello everyone, Dr. Christine Smith back for a really cool session today with Dr. Stephen Schwartz, a friend of mine who is also known as Dr. Vibe, but that is because he has a massive understanding of bioharmonic technologies and bioresonance and how that can turn into a variety of different care modalities. And I'm going to go ahead and invite him. Functional medicine and frequency medicine, I believe, to be the future of medicine. And that was something that Einstein said as well. And there are so many different ways that you can apply this in your care. And so that's why I wanted to bring Dr. Schwartz on to talk about this, because it's one of his areas of expertise. So hi, Dr. Schwartz, how are you?
Hello, Dr. Christine. How are you doing? We made it.
I am great, yes.
It's funny how we're working with frequency medicine. We can't even figure out, I can't figure out Instagram Live.
Technology is its own type of frequency, that's for sure. And my difficulties with it certainly change my frequency from time to time. But I love the conversations that we were having. So we have met at a conference, but we actually know each other through a variety of degrees of connection and old friends and practitioners. Amazing how communities align. But we were just having some great conversations about frequency and tone, and in the chiropractic realm we often refer to toning the body, and to me vibration is the language of the nervous system, and so I think it is a really cool way to work with the body. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in this niche and what you're doing now?
Well, thank you. So I love that I'm talking with you in Colorado, because this all began for me in Colorado. I'm a chiropractor. I graduated from New York Chiropractic College in 98, and so it's been a minute, and you know what, my background was in sports medicine, and I moved to Colorado to work with, I remember, like, extreme sport athletes. That's really what I wanted to work with, snowboarders at the X Games. That was like my intention, and go work with the Olympic training facility down in the Springs. That was like my initial intention. And within my first year of getting a professional job, I was exposed to bioenergetic techniques for reversing chronic illness, like autoimmune diseases. And this was 2000, these were like, nobody was really treating these things, or nobody knew how to treat them. Nobody really knew even what the definition of them were. And it took me, there was a doctor that I was working with down in the tech center area. She was one of my mentors. And she had a waiting room full of people, all happy with chronic illness, and they were getting better. And my mom had an autoimmune disease, and she was like, you should go learn this. And I went out to San Diego, and I just remember not knowing anything about muscle testing, muscle reflex testing, not knowing really anything about that. But my body, I was getting a yes. I was getting a very strong yes. And it changed my life. Like, literally that weekend changed my life. I came back to my practice in Denver, and I had my patients, and I said, hey, I just learned this new technique, and it was called Jaffe-Mahler technique. I don't think it even exists anymore. Doctors Jaffe-Mahler created it. That spun into learning some Nambudrapad's allergy elimination technique. I'm not sure if you heard about that, but it's all the same kind. Then I worked with Dr. Les Feinberg, who created a technique called neuromodulation technique, which really became like my flagship technology. These were in the earliest days, between 2000 and 2002. But I remember after, and just as a highlight, like, what kind of energy techniques? We were working with these little energy vials, and they were literally just tubes of water with information in them, and they were energetic signatures. That's the key. Like, what's an energetic signature? And I would put them into somebody's energy field. I would muscle test for them, and the nervous system would give me a yes or no response, and then we would reprogram it. So from there, it's a program. I call it organic biofeedback. Organic biofeedback of really working at the most primal aspects of our nervous system, of tuning it, toning it, and really then it comes down to, what's the program? Like, how are you going to run the program? Because really NAET, Nam-Butrophod's allergy elimination technique, is completely different than neuromodulation technique. And I had associates when I was one of my other future projects, one of my future practices we had, I had associates and we were getting epic results, dude. I mean, just the same. I think I kind of took it for granted because, I mean, just as a doctor, my expectation is that, of course, you're going to get people better. I mean, like I was just thinking about it, just as a medical doctor that's pushing pills and doing stuff and everybody's coming in and complaining all the time. I don't know I can't even imagine what it would be like filling my office full of people that are literally not getting better every day and you're just kind of rotating them through something. I can't even conceive that practice.
Well, and I think there's so many professionals in that situation where it's not what they dreamed of, and they're realizing that there's different forms of care, which is why I do stuff like this, is so that people can learn about what's out there. Like, I just saw that we have a psychiatrist watching, and I love that they're here because frequency, man, that ties totally into emotions and your emotional body, and your emotional body is connected to your biochemistry, your immune system, and your bioresonance affects your biochemistry, which I know is something you love talking about, so I'd love to dive into that. But let's just start with, I like this idea and this concept of the bridge that you talk about. So can you expand a little bit on that and how you view it in the world of, frequency in healthcare?
Yeah. So in chiropractic world, there's three reflexes we learn in the body. We learn about the somatosomatic reflex, the somatovisceral reflex, and the visceral somatic reflex. For those of you that are watching that are like, I don't know anything about what Dr. Schwartz just said, super simple. Somato, body to body. This is, my neck hurts. I adjust your neck. Oh my God, my neck feels so much better. Somatovisceral is, my neck hurts. And wow, it's weird. As I started adjusting, my asthma, which I never told you about, magically disappeared. That's like the super wizard chiropractic stuff where there's a bridge between the internal aspects of the body and our nervous system, and our spine is literally just like the circuit breaker, and we're resetting the circuit breaker and everything works. That's the somatovisceral reflex. Chiropractors notoriously are always working basically with those two. But there's the third one is the magic. And that's the visceral somatic reflex. And that's really where the internal aspects of our bodies, whether it be emotional, whether it be the organs, the internal workings of our bodies are triggering neurological dysfunction in our nervous system. And we're seeing them show up as subluxation. Oh, actually, I was told that you guys are not allowed to use subluxation anymore. Did you hear that?
Wasn't aware of that.
It's now, I guess, it's considered a historical reference only. So I was told, I did a podcast on, what was that chiropractic? The Chiro Hustle podcast. And yeah, I was told that there's no longer, subluxation is a historical reference only. So I was like, what do you use instead? Intersegmental dysfunction, which I'm super down with. So now you're left with intersegmental dysfunction. And these are the ones when you go to the chiropractor and they keep adjusting the spine and it feels kind of like soft and crunchy, and it doesn't resolve, and it's over and over and again, and I just keep going to chiropractor, it doesn't really do anything. They're not addressing the visceral somatic reflex. And so I would say to myself, how do you treat that? How do you work with that? And it takes you into a whole different realm. So I feel like the work that I do is working specifically with the visceral somatic reflexes. And this is also where you can get into more of the esoteric stuff like this, where you're kind of doing more of the psychic surgery. And how do you work with, so this is where you start checking out different reflex points, different organs, different endogenous aspects of your cells that aren't working. So working with these energy vials, we put them into your energy field, check for the body, really checking for these visceral somatic reflexes. And it can be emotions, it can be chemicals, it could be organs, it could be cellular memory processes, it could be chronic infection, toxicity. These are, and really what I think is interesting about when I was in practice full time was there was a bridge between 2000 and 2015 where we went from seeing a lot of Dr. Devi Nam-Butropod talked about these primary allergies where, hey, I'm allergic to dairy. I put a vial of dairy in your hand, push down on your arm, retreat. Next thing you know, you can eat dairy. It's magical. To moving into something more of a secondary allergy where it's not the dairy, but there's some kind of toxin, infection, emotional trauma that is anchoring in that aspect. So when you're clearing the dairy, it's not clearing. And what we saw was we went from a wave of these primary allergies easily resolving to all of them shifting into a secondary allergy perspective and just needing a lot more intricate rewiring of the nervous system. And this really took me into a deep concept. Along my journey in 2004, I was introduced to a shaman. I didn't know anything about a shaman either. I read Celestine Prophecy when I was in chiropractic school, but that was about the extent of it. And I mean, obviously I heard of a shaman. I had studied esoteric studies, but I had never met a shaman. And anyhow, he invites me to go down with him to Peru. Next thing you know, I'm drinking ayahuasca. I'm drinking San Pedro. I'm in top of Machu Picchu, having past life reactivations, all these things. And when I come back to Denver, I experienced a cellular memory reprogramming that I was not expecting, which I never even considered. And it activated something in my mind where I'm like, wow, like, what is this? Like, what just happened? And especially along that journey, my conscious mind was kind of in this place of, wow, I have no idea what's going on. And my soul was like, you're doing this. You're already doing this in your practice, and you've done this in past life before. So I was in that kind of weird space. But it was really cool. And so that took me into the world of studying cellular memory. And so really my practice then became very specific in 3 pillars of health. One is, how do you reduce inflammation? How do you clear cellular memory? And how do you balance the body? And those were the 3. But you can't balance the body until you resolve inflammation and then clear cellular memory. And the cool thing about BJ and Dee Dee Palmer, dude, they were so right back in 1895. Is innate intelligence just happens. Like, if you remove all the aspects that are inhibiting the flow, your innate programming is for homeostasis. So then it's more like little tweaking, so why is your body inflamed? And then there's another one of my mentors, Dr. Robert Cass, who was or still is the founder of Physica Energetics, total wizard. We connected. He was a mentor of mine for many years, and he really exposed me to a concept known as the causal chain progression. Have you heard of the causal chain progression?
Feel free to expand.
It's another bridge. It's the bridge. So really in chiropractic world, and really in medical world, in healing world, period, people go to see you because they have X. I have pain. I have headaches. I can't sleep. I have digestive issues. I have fill in the blank. And then they come to you and you're like, I'm going to support you with that X. And so they're like, oh my God, I got to get to work. I have to make sure your pain is better, that you're sleeping better. So you start working with these symptoms. But really, when you're working with my whole practice was chronic. Like, we worked with chronic degenerative conditions. So like, people come to see me, they've been sick for decades, if not their whole lives. And so listen, for me, I'm like, listen, if you want to get this resolved, it's not about your pain. You're having pain. It's not about your sleep. It's not about all these issues. It's about, we need to resolve the issues that are putting you into the chronic process. And what's the pathophysiology that's activating chronicity in your life in the first place? And so that takes us into the causal chain progression.
Oh, yes, I call it a biochemical cascade. So, yeah.
Well, okay, biochemical cascades. So we could be splitting hairs, but I feel that a biochemical cascade is activated. That's another part of this. How long are we going for this live? How long is this?
About an hour.
Okay, cool. So make sure we'll talk about biochemistry and bioresonance after we talk about the causal chain progression. But really in the causal chain progression, it takes a step back. So it's not about what you're coming in for with your symptoms. It's about understanding the flow, really, the path of why you're. They ever asked the question, like, I remember in 2000, in my earliest curious days, I remember going, I don't know if WebMD even exists anymore, but I remember like searching WebMD for the definition of an autoimmune disease. And it said, I can quote it, for some unknown etiology, the immune system becomes hypersensitive and begins attacking itself. Okay, that's the definition. So we don't know what the root is, but for some reason it becomes hypersensitive and begins attacking itself. So from a medical perspective, their treatment of cure was, let's suppress the immune system, which based off that definition actually makes perfect sense. We don't know what it is, but the immune system's hypersensitive, let's suppress it. So based off the causal chain, we're wanting to know what that etiology is. So now it comes into well, what if it's a pathogen? And what's a pathogen? Bacteria, virus, parasite, mold, fungus, yeast, mycoplasmal infection, all the things. I mean, everybody's treating Lyme disease. I mean, we've been treating Lyme disease for 20 plus years. I mean, it's, and really there's all kinds of co-infections, all these things going on with Lyme disease. But really at the end of the day, it all stems from when I would scan when I do an intake for people with Lyme's, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, they all had some kind of significant emotional trauma or some kind of, and usually some kind of like, kind of sexual trauma or some kind of something. It doesn't have to be like a rape or something, but it could be something, some kind of like intimate identity kind of thing that happens with them that shifted. And a lot of people had mono, like mono is big, that went through a pleomorphic change that mutated into something else. These are all things about that, but really there was some kind of trigger with these infectious agents. I digress. But with this, we end up getting into working with infectious agents or toxins, environmental toxins or food toxins or something like that. And so now from a causal chain progression, instead of unknown etiology, let's fix it. Due to a pathogen, the immune system becomes hypersensitive, begins attacking itself. That completely changes the game. So now instead of, well, we're going to suppress the immune system, we now are looking at the immune system as it's actually functioning normally. So now how do we support the immune system and get it to work better? So now we need to, this is where we start working. Maybe you're having food allergies. Maybe we need to get the organs working better. Maybe we need to, and you don't jump into working path. Causal chain progression is the key. You don't jump into the pathogens first because really they're stealthy. If the body had all the resources it needed, it would already identify, target, and destroy the infectious agent in the first place. Because it can't, that's why you're having a chronic inflammatory process to begin with. So we need to back up and let's support the foundation of resetting the nervous system in a variety of different ways. So I went through with my little energy vials, that evolved into working with biofeedback systems. I created this really cool laser technique called neurocircuit repatterning that was working with organs, cellular memory, and working with nerve root activation. Super cool. And it all was based off the causal chain progression. So once we would get that understood and we can control that smoldering coal of the inflammatory process, all of a sudden the immune system is like, oh, okay, I can get back to, it's not in fight or flight. It's not in sympathetic overload. We can, and it begins to re-regulate itself on its own. Then we can go in and start working with how do we treat infections. Now that's another question. How are you going to treat infectious agents? Okay, I want to treat infectious agents. Okay, how are you going to work with a cell wall deficient mycoplasma? That's an interesting question. And you can use herbs. I'm down with herbs. Acupuncture. I mean, when I sat in Dr. Jaffe and Mahler's training in 2000, you know what we learned? We learned how to use little energy vials to identify, target, and destroy infectious agents. That was fascinating to me. That was like, What do you mean? So I can use a little glass of water and put in your energy field and program the immune system to reawaken the identity of these stealth pathogens. And you know what? And it worked. So because it worked, as a scientist, I said, okay, like what's happening? How can I put water into somebody's energy field that has some kind of information in it and reprogram the immune system? Like what's that all about? So then I started looking into, okay, let me just finish. So that was the first step. Second step is clearing cellular memory. So now what we started seeing was that the body, okay, the infectious agents are gone, but why is the body still responding in the absence of infectious agents? Because this is what is so beautiful about the human nervous system. Because you're not walking around like, oh, I'm raising my arm, I'm moving over here, I'm picking up my cup and I'm putting it to my mouth and I'm drinking. That was my little segue to take a sip of drink. And but I'm not thinking about these things. It's involuntary. And it's the same thing about working with professional athletes or Olympics or snowboarders. Those guys are going up and hitting 12 feet of air off the lip of a snowboard. They're not thinking about that. Their bodies are going into a cellular memory process of full activation. That to me is fascinating. But that thing, that also takes you into the same part earlier, like, hey, I came out of the womb and I'm, my dad or was like a guitar player. And next thing you know, I've always been around music and now I'm playing guitar and I'm like a virtuoso or playing piano, little kid. Like it's been programmed, or I could speak 5 languages. My family spoke 5 languages. These are all the positive aspects of cellular memory. The other end of it is, I grew up in a home where nobody believed in me. They said I was stupid. They said I was ugly, or I was abused, or my family, my dad was a smoker, and so like that is imprinting on your cellular memory as well. So next, that shapes your reality. So as a doctor, I always say that arrows move in both directions, which is absolutely fantastic because it's super empowering. I'd like to share this with you as an empowering statement, if I may, Dr. Christina.
Absolutely.
So as down the hole as your patients may be, or anybody that's listening to this may be, and they're like, you don't understand me, you've never been in my life, you're right. So it seems pretty easy and passively that you did not consciously create that reality for yourself, yet you are in the state that you are in, whatever that might be, whether it be overweight, chronic anxiety, chronic pain, whatever it might be. You didn't consciously do that, but somehow your body picked up cellular memory to create that. Really easily you created that without you even knowing about it. That's awesome. That means that just as easily you can create a new pathway for something else because it works just as easy. Now, here's the caveat. And this is really a feather in the cap for chiropractors as well too, because people come in dead. Oh my God, they should have been getting chiropractic for 20 years anyhow. They come see you when their back's in spasm, they have like 388 discs, they've been in 5 auto accidents, they're going through a divorce, they drink, they smoke, and they're like, can you fix me? I have something's happening Monday.
I'll give you
Is that possible?
2 appointments.
Yeah, I get 2 appointments. Yeah, exactly. So the cool thing about it is you got to be real with your patients and be like, okay, like we got to reverse this. But as much energy as you've been putting into the one thing that's been generating these patterns, we need to match that energy of going in the other direction. And you're creating a disservice to your patients, not you, Dr. Christina, because you're an amazing doctor. But in general, us as professionals, for like, well, I want to see you 3 times a week or 2 times a week, or I'll see you once a month because I don't want to over practice. You're not giving the same energy back to the system to give an appropriate reversal process. You really need, that's the one thing, if I would say oncologist, if you're treating cancer, as soon as you get diagnosed, boom, we're going to give you chemotherapy every day, 3 times a day for the next month. And we're going to like kill that cancer. If you took that same approach to adjusting the spine and chiropractic with that same condition, even though we don't treat cancer, we're only optimizing the body, we would see a similar outcome in the other direction. So we really need to match the energy that's being presented to us.
Well, and like we were just like sharing a reel that we found interesting the other day about how there's literally frequency medicine that can oscillate cancer cells at the right frequency and start to dissolve the cell. And this can also be applied for things like infection. There's a whole bunch of research about, different light frequencies, and which light frequencies actually oscillate at the right frequency to be able to disrupt the membrane of the infectious agent and kill it within the body with like minimal battle or like no poison needed, right? So that's why we wanted to talk about this stuff. And I'm just going to like recap a little bit of what you said, because there's so many good pearls in there. So in the beginning, we were talking about muscle testing and different things that you can use for like clearing allergies and all these things. The fundamental idea behind all of them, because there's a lot of different techniques, is treating the body like a circuit board. Like there's a way that you can essentially ask the nervous system questions by testing strength of the muscles when you put a stressor into the environment of the body. That can be a physical stressor. So like, let's say you sprained your ankle and I push on your ankle sprain, all of a sudden your body's going to react in a stressed out way and the rest of your muscles will go weak while you're experiencing that pain. Now you can also do that with frequencies, and that's what we're talking about with the vials, right? You can imprint a vial with the frequency of an enzyme or the frequency of a pathogen or the frequency of a toxin. And then you can hold it in the field of someone's biofield, because okay, like for anyone who's doubting if we emit energy and all that, let me just put it plainly for you. They can measure your thoughts with a magnet that doesn't touch your head. Therefore, we emit our own Wi-Fi, period. Like you have a biofield. Everything living has a biofield. Everything in the world has a biofield. That's just physics. It's about the electrons and the valence shells and what level of valence they're on. And for anyone who doesn't know yet, you're going to know really soon that I'm a total physics nerd. So when we're talking about frequency vials, that's what we're discussing. And there's different ways that you can like put a pathogen and you can test. So like, let's say that pathogen makes the body weak. You can then bring an herb with a certain frequency into the field and you can see what mitigates the weakness of that pathogen, which is how you can find out energetically outside of lab testing what it's vulnerable to. And then we often confirm it with lab testing. So it's just one of those additional tools on top of lab testing of like, it's another tool. Why would I not use it? And then in this, if we dive into kind of the chiropractic history that he was talking about, the reason that chiropractors are into this kind of stuff is because everything we do revolves around tone. I like to tell people like my job is basically to tune you like an instrument. I find what's flat, I find what's sharp, and I bring everything into resonance with one another so that there's harmony in the body. And that goes for our nervous system, that goes for our energetic field, it goes for the nutrition that we're using or that you're missing. Like your biofield changes when you're depleted in nutrition or you're depleted energetically, which is why after you have like a hard emotional experience and then you're in a room of people, you don't really want to like interact with the people because your energetic field is just in a totally different place. And then when we look at this and we look at the things that affect the body that we can mitigate, that basically cascade that he was talking about, what was the word that you used for it?
Causal chain regression.
Causal chain progression, thank you. So in that, in the like foundational traditional chiropractic philosophy, it's thoughts, traumas, toxins. These are the things that affect our body that we need to address. And so thoughts being one of them, right? Emotions, emotional body. Even Gabor Mate says that the immune system is connected to our emotional body and the limbic brain. And, that plays into your autonomic system and everything that your body regulates without you thinking about it. So if you're repressing your emotions, your immune system can actually either become underactivated or overactivated from that experience because they're interconnected, which is why if you read some of his books, like When the Body Says No, it's a whole book about like different personality types and life experiences that tend to go along with different autoimmune conditions. It's pretty fascinating. In all of this, as we start to address those primary causes, then we are toning the system. We are tuning you, the instrument, so that you can emit the frequency that you want to emit in your life. As you start to emit a different frequency, stuff in your life changes. This is the idea of manifestation, right? Like you put out the energy that you want to get back. And that goes back to the cellular memory thing that you were talking about. If you have a cellular memory of everything going wrong in your life, that's what you're going to focus on, and you're only going to see all the pieces that are going wrong. And there's a lot of things about learning how to shift your system and shift your nervous system into a state where it's not looking for everything that's the danger, because that's kind of a fight or flight state. And that's what we're going to be like diving into a bit next, is ways that you can do this. And so when you start getting your body into more of a parasympathetic rest and digest state, not only do you heal better, your cells actually enter a healing state, but you also start to perceive your reality differently, which changes your emotions, which then changes your immune system again. So that's how all of this is interconnected and why it's so important, because if your nervous system is in a fight or flight state, or it's dealing with a pathogen, or it's dealing with a toxin, and it's a protective cellular danger response, you can't even absorb nutrition anyway. Like when I get these really complicated patients in who have been on all the supplements and seen like 10 practitioners, and they sit there and they tell me there's 7 years of medical trauma with a dead straight face and no emotion, I'm like, cool, you're completely disconnected from your body and your cells are in a danger response. You're not even absorbing the nutrition people put you on. We're starting with body work. And I will start completely differently with that case. We'll start with body work. I'll reset their nervous system. And then once they can actually like feel their body and they can feel their emotions again without repressing them, then they will be able to absorb nutrition because they can actually move things through their system. If you're not feeling your emotions or you're suppressing them, your whole system's going to go into a bit of a freeze state. And there's a whole book about emotions called The Molecules of Emotion. And if you don't feel your emotions, they are little particles, they're peptides, like they're made of physical items, and they build up in your cells and they make your cellular processes unable to function correctly. And they emit their own frequency. So if you shove a whole bunch of anger back down in your body, you're going to be emitting some really weird frequencies that are going to mess with your biochemistry. So I think that's a perfect segue to jump into bioresonance and biochemistry. Let's dive into that.
Thank you for that recap. That was fantastic. So we were talking the couple of things that you were talking about in terms of bioresonance. I keep asking myself, where does things originate? Like, where does biochemistry begin? And really, we don't have biochemistry. Like, we're not born with a closed container of biochemistry. Are you raising your hand?
I am.
Okay.
I want to add in, a cardiologist on here had a really great question. I think this could be a cool example to use as we talk about this stuff. So they said, essentially, like a lot of patients in cardiology, their angina, their chest pain, things like that will mimic a heart condition when actually it's more neurological or psychological. So I think that could be a fun place to add into this wherever appropriate.
You know what? It can also be musculoskeletal. You know, I mean, like 9 times out of 10, people are having musculoskeletal issues, and it's reflecting in those areas. And I think what's interesting, though, is just from the other side of the perspective, you know, I might feel something in my shoulder like, oh my God, am I having a heart attack? No, I have like a trigger point in my you know, my pec or in my neck or something like that, and it's referring down. So, you know, I think there's a lot of things. I mean, one thing about the heart, which I think is amazing, we don't see cancer in the heart. You know, it's the largest electromagnetic field organ it's the electromagnetic field in the body. It emanates everything. And from the moment that we're born to the moment that we die, it just keeps going. And so when
I was going to say, let's just remind people that it's basically a frequency emitter. The way that I think of the heart in your body is it keeps your rhythm on so many different levels. So let that like sink in a little more esoterically, that like your heart keeps your rhythm.
And think about it. Why are people going to the cardiologist? And listen, I'm not a cardiologist. I'm a chiropractor. But we worked with a lot of patients, you know, with heart conditions and things like this. And what do? We do the same thing. We regulate their nervous system and kind of bring them back into place. So why would their rhythm be off? And, you know, can it be diet? You know, yeah, you know, you got the plugged arteries but even in terms of that, it seems like this whole frequency conversation keeps coming back to inflammation. And really, why are people more prone to inflammation than not? Because a lot of people smoke cigarettes, drink booze, eat fast food all the time, and don't have clogged arteries. So why do people, and then other people do? Or like, why is it when you go and you have like surgery and some people just get this like massive response of scar tissue? Because their bodies are systemically inflamed due to some kind of chronic something that's causing elevated inflammatory markers. It doesn't have to be the food. It can be food. It could be emotions. It could be, 9 times out of 10, it's probably they probably have some kind of chronic infection. And that is actually, I think, the breakdown in allopathic medicine, because they've segmented everything, where if you can take a holistic approach and see the interconnectedness to the bigger issues, and really all we're seeing energetically is that the key diagnostic is, where are they sick? That's where the trauma is.
Like, for example, for those who don't know, your oral health is acutely tied to your cardiovascular health. Like, if you have a bunch of crappy old fillings that are falling apart, or infections, or a sensitive tooth, it can definitely affect you cardiovascularly. Same thing with your gut. And one of the other things that I love to think about the heart, everyone thinks of like this little organ right here, right? To me, the heart goes all the way out to your fingertips. It's every single vessel that is connected to it, and it wraps around your nervous system. That's how they form in embryology. They have a completely intimate relationship. And that's the like foundational component of old osteopathy, right? Is like promoting blood flow. Whereas chiropractors were all about the nervous system and promoting like that master, director, chief operator of the body. And then you can section it off into all of these little organ groups. But that even goes back to, you know, what we were talking about earlier with like getting the nervous system in a healing state. None of your organs can heal if your nervous system is not in a healing state. And cardiovascular stuff, totally tied to infection, also acutely tied to stress. Because one other thing about stress is that you have microbes in your gut that feed on your stress hormones, like Yersinia and E. coli. They actually have receptors for your stress hormones, and they grow when they sense that you're stressed out. When you grow these dysbiotic bacteria in your gut, can cause gut permeability and leaky gut. Then you can get subclinical endotoxemia, like an accidental poisoning of your own blood. And all of a sudden it goes back to your heart and affects you cardiovascularly and affects your brain. So that's how none of this is separate.
I love it. Thank you. So, okay, a couple things. Let's get back on track. So thank you for,
Sorry.
I'm saying this, I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to myself. Sure. Dr. Schwartz, get back on track. You asked the question about how bioresonance creates biochemistry. So there's a fundamental aspect of the nervous system. This is exactly what we're looking at. There's two aspects, and it begins with something known as the piezoelectric effect. And it states that in a living system, the body creates, in a living system, there's movement. If there's movement, it creates an electromagnetic field. Where does that happen? They go down into cells, and they go into below cells into subatomic particles. We got protons, neutrons, electrons. They're in constant perpetual motion. And it's a living system, so it creates an electromagnetic field. Inside of one cell, there's 100 trillion cells. And inside of one cell, there are, somebody told me that there was 1 million electrons per cell. I'm not sure if that's a real number or not, but it's a lot. Okay, we're just going to go with a lot. And so let's just use the number that, let's just use 1 million. Let's use 1,000. Let's use 100. 100's a lot, because it's 100 times 100,000. It's a lot, okay? Whatever the number is going to be, inside of there, spinning around, every time that the electron jumps from one, what they call electron shell or electron cube, there's something, a spark is emitted, and energy is released, and that's a process known as photonic emission. So when photonic, that is the release of energy, and that's multiplied by, let's call it 1 million per cell times 100 trillion cells. That is what is not your hippy dippy aura. That's your electromagnetic field, which is your aura, and it's been scientifically proven that that is the eminence of your photonic emission, which generates infinite amount of energy. Now, the thing is, you might ask yourself, well, why is it when I look at you? And, you know, we can look at clairvoyance and things like that. And he's like, oh, I see your energy field. It's pink. It's purple. Amazing. We can all on some level see it. Some people can't see it. Some people more gifted than others. But the reality of it is that for the regular everyday person, we're looking at each other and we're seeing our skin and we're not seeing the aura. Okay. So why is the difference there? Because that's activated in light in another dimension. And another terminology is, I always talk about interdimensional portals. Oh my God.
Oh,
Dr. Schwartz is
saved
about to
that
talk.
part for the end. We can dive deep into
Well, I'm
that.
not sure how much end is. There's like, you know, maybe no 20 minutes. Like, this is the setup, but it's all part of it. So because this is the key to biochemistry, is interdimensional portals. So you're having this, because this is the bridge between light and sound, because the only difference between sound and light is speed. So if we are, I just explained scientifically, there's a process known as photonic emission through the piezoelectric effect, which are two scientific proven terms that exist that explains our electromagnetic field. Now, why are we not walking around this ball of light, which we are? We ground ourselves into this dimensional reality in this three-dimensional space. So we're slowing down light, and we ground into interdimensional portals. What's a dimension? It's a measurable space. And what's between two measurable spaces? And quantum physics says that there's infinite numbers of dimensions, and the only difference between one dimension and another is one thing. You know what the one thing is? Vibrational resonance. So we are in vibrational resonance of whatever dimension we're in right now. So if you are loving your dimensional reality, awesome, congratulations. If you don't, then I invite you to change your vibration, change your intention, and then find a new dimensional reality of your choosing. That's what my technology is. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But essentially, when you can couple your intentions with the vibrational resonance, now what happens is in this dimensional reality, we begin to slow down light into sound. And how does this happen? They're going back to the nervous system. Everybody thinks of, even, we're talking about adjusting the spine with the vertebrae. We look at the spine, and we have the peripheral nerves, we have the cranial nerves that come off here. But really, and we look at the brain, but there's other fundamental aspects of the nervous system, the living connective tissue matrix, which surrounds every tissue system cell of the body. That's the key. That is the true nervous system.
The stuff that we used to throw in the trash can in the cadaver lab because we thought it was not important, when actually it's like how our entire body's connected.
Did you read my book?
No, not yet.
That's exactly, I actually talk about that in my book, about how we're in lab and we centrifuge down the serum, and we we discard all the stuff that's not necessary to study the serum, which is 90% water. But what about the stuff that's not necessary? That's the living connective tissue matrix that's conductive, that feeds into the serum. That is what allows the biochemistry. It's the bridge of biochemistry. So when we're looking through, so now we have also not just the living connective tissue matrix, we also have the enteric nervous system. That's that gut-brain relationship, which has more neurological connections than actually our brain. And then there's another part of the nervous system which is vitally important that most people don't even know is part of the nervous system. That is the skin.
Yeah, oh, yeah. That's what I wanted to talk about with the embryology. So, fun fact for people, your skin and your brain come from the same layer embryologically, the ectoderm. So to me, your skin and your connective tissue are an extension of your brain. So whatever's happening with your skin is a really good reflection of what's happening on the inside.
And we would, in my practice, everybody says the skin's the biggest detox organ. It's the biggest sense organ. It's the biggest sense organ. And really, in my practice, we used to get great results with skin conditions because we wouldn't look to detox the skin. We would, but I was like, okay, what neurologically is out of balance that's reflecting and excreting through the skin? Of course, it could be backed up in the liver, in the kidneys, in the lymph. Of course, open up the lymph. Of course, get the gut going. With you probably have a dysbiosis. Of course, those things. But at the end of the day, and 99% of the time, people that have skin issues are totally anxious. They're like super on edge, and their skin is expressing themselves because, repeat after me, we're physical manifestations.
We're physical manifestations
of our own energetic expressions.
Energetic expression.
Yeah, we are physical second to our energy to our energetics. So when we're coming in with a physical thing, what is the energy field diagnostically sharing with us? And so anyhow, so now we go through, so these are all the components of the nervous system. So I'm actually here in Dallas, Texas. I'm speaking tomorrow at the Mindset Summit. And it's interesting because I'm talking about the ectoderm. I'm actually talking about all these things that you're talking about. But interestingly enough, you know what? I'm going on as Dr. Stephen Schwartz. I'm a body set coach because the issues are in the tissues, and the brain is only the relay station. And so, and the interesting thing about the ectoderm, and this is the most important thing about the ectoderm, is yes to the brain, yes to hypnosis, Yep to subconscious mind reprogramming. Yes, yes, yes to all of those things. And what about the other 90% of the nervous system that you're not accessing, that respond exactly the same way systemically, because they originate from the same biological material, the ectoderm. It's the same thing, and that's what's so epic about. So in my journey, I'm like, okay, why am I only going to focus on the interplay between the environment and the brain when I can really access a much bigger field of activation through the skin, which will influence biochemistry and the brain, and like just the same as you're going to be doing like cadence to like kind of bring you into into a hypnotic state when I'm speaking to you in a very in like theta cadence kind of process, right? Are you falling asleep right now? Are you feeling sleepy? Feeling activated? No. But that same process works through the skin as well. So this takes so when we bridge through these aspects here of the nervous system, now we can see that the information through the living connective tissue matrix is responding to our environment through vibrational resonance. Now it becomes easy because we know the biological materials, microfilaments, microtubules, intermediate tubules, aka the living connective tissue matrix, is what they do is they have one feature function. They respond to your environment through vibrational resonance. Cool. How do we influence vibrational resonance? Sound, light, frequency, and vibration. And what's the difference between them? Light is fast. Slow down light, it turns into sound. Slow down sound, it turns into vibration. And then frequencies proportionally live within that chain. So depending on depth of penetration, you can penetrate deeper with light, slow it down into the connective tissue for sound, what we can hear, and then vibration is in connection with the skin. So my whole research, and in 2007, I started to, is it okay if I give a little history of my music company?
Sure.
So from all of this work that I just explained to you, I then said, great, how do I clear cellular memory? And remember, my whole practice is based off of frequency medicine. And so, okay, how do I shift the electron orientation? How do I directly influence the living connective tissue matrix and change, this brings it full circle, the chemical cascades? Because one chemical cascade is released in fight or flight in the sympathetic response, which is toxic and inflammatory.
And a
Then
breakdown state.
what's that?
And a breakdown state, a catabolic state.
Catabolic state. And the other expression is parasympathetic, and which is rest, repose, healing, regenerative state. And everybody that's on this call, all 38 people that are viewing this and listening to this, we operate chiropractors. We're the original biohackers, by the way. And we're actually not biohackers. We're bioharmonizers. We bring harmony. We remove interference from intersegmental dysfunction. But I'm big into the biohacking space. And the reality of it is everybody's stacking everything and doing ice baths and infrared saunas and all that stuff. At the core, the core function of biohacking is to bring the body into parasympathetic. Because in parasympathetic is when your biochemical cascades are optimized chemically for healing. Period. So if your body is not in parasympathetic, I don't care what you're stacking and what you're doing, your biochemistry is not optimized for healing. So as a fundamental, anybody, I don't care what condition you have. And this is the self-care revolution. Forget Dr. Christina, forget Dr. Schwartz, forget Dr. Vibe, Dr. Stephen, forget all that. Just for you, whoever's listening to this, okay, right now, and you're freaking out, and you don't know what to do, I want you to say to yourself, how can I bring my body into parasympathetic? Because only good things are going to happen in that space. In fact, I was saying, if you put your body into a harmonic resonance, only good things are going to happen. And so I was in Los Angeles 2 days ago. I was at a party and I was talking with the guys. He asked me what I did. I told him I worked with sound and therapeutic music. And he was like, oh, you can use frequencies like to hurt as much as you can use them to heal. And I'm like, you're exactly right. But I was like, if you are working with harmonic resonance, period, only good things are going to happen. So let's just say you're listening to music and it's dissonant music. There's a lot of people that like dissonant music because their body is dissonant. Okay? And you're like, I really like this. For people that are more harmonic, not saying I'm harmonic and you're dissonant, I tend to like stuff a little more harmonic. It wrecks my nervous system. It doesn't feel good to me. So if you're putting if you put dissonant music into a dissonant space, like, oh my God, I really like this because it's a match. However,
The match, that's what it's all about, is the match.
It's a match. However, if I take harmonic resonance, and this goes back to what we were talking about, the right frequencies about cancer, this ties back to the cancer frequencies perfectly. Because they're not harmonizing. Well, they are okay. This was the exact conversation where I was actually having at this party. If you take harmonics and you put it into a petri dish of dissonance, even though that dissonance might detoxify, it might deorganize, it might explode, that journey is to bring whatever that is into harmonic resonance. So it's a journey too. So if you are dissonant and you put harmonics into dissonance, it might, but for the process of bringing it into balance. So it's going to detox. So you might be like, oh my God, I feel horrible. Oh my God, I got a headache. Oh my God, I don't like the way this feels. But I really like the way that dissonance makes me feel. That's why I'm smoking, drinking, doing drugs, watching porn, doing whatever I'm doing, because that's what your body has cellular memory for. But if you really want to create something new, we can bring your body into a harmonic space. So all roads lead to harmonic resonance and really to something to optimize your space. So I've created, yes.
I was going to say, can I add in one little thing? So I want to, just because you keep saying so many good things, and sometimes I think it's helpful to like encapsulate a few of them. So
thank you.
No problem. So when we're talking about like the ability of touch to work on the body, a lot of people have asked me like, well, when you're resetting someone's nervous system, what do you do? Because chiropractors, they just think like, okay, crack, crack, crack. That's what everyone thinks of chiros. Not really. Like the whole purpose of chiropractic is to balance your nervous system. We can do all of that with zero cracking. So it just depends on like what your body needs. You might need a different form than somebody else. When I'm doing a nervous system reset, it's actually a technique that I learned from a PT who does like neurological PT. And it's basically 5 different kinds of touch that stimulate all of the different types of receptors in your skin. And it's done in this rhythmic, non-predictive way that stimulates the brainstem and the limbic brain and the neocortex, but it does it in a way where it starts to down-regulate the thinking brain, and it kind of brings all of your awareness and attention into the midbrain and the hindbrain, which is essentially like inducing an alpha brainwave state or a meditative state. And it's kind of akin to like rebooting a computer or restarting it. So I tell people like, hey, sometimes we got to fix the hardware and then we got to update your software. And sometimes I'll do emotional work before that, and then I'll do that work, and they can kind of integrate it that way. So that's like one approach, right? But you have to have someone else to do that to you. That is why the stuff that Dr. Schwartz is working on is really cool, is because this is stuff that people can do on their own. And that's what he and I are kind of all about, and why we really like teaching is like, we love helping people, but we don't want to save you. We want to teach you how to save yourself so that you can be empowered. And when we start talking about like the energetics of things, I've had significantly different results when I do that technique on someone and my mind is wandering about the different stuff that I have to do, versus when I am sitting in a state where I am focused on like the void of unconditional love and just sitting in that place of oneness while I'm doing this technique and essentially sharing that bioenergetic resonance with their body, I get a much better result. And so it's been really interesting in practice just to like literally see this happening based on my own state, which is also why when you work with different practitioners or different muscle testers, some of them are better than others because it also depends on like how much they've practiced, how focused they are, what are they doing in their own body, in their own mind. However, with some of the technology that Dr. Schwartz is working with, you remove that component where it's like it's consistent all the time. So thank you for letting me just talk about that, but
No,
let's dive
I'm
into
on your show.
your tech and what you've been doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate having this conversation with you, by the way.
Oh, good.
And I'm
Me
looking at
too.
everybody making their comments, and I'm looking, we've had the same amount of people. You're doing having a conversation when nobody's dropping off the call, So, and I appreciate everybody giving their feedback here. As you can see, I'm really passionate about it. I wrote a book, and I'd love for you guys to pick up a copy. It's a game changer. It's actually been referred to as the doctrine to the new earth.
Ooh.
And I wrote it after 14 years. It's called Primal Resonance. Not residence like where you live, but resonance like in your body. Primal Resonance. Discover the secrets to health, vitality, and optimal human performance from Dr. Stephen Schwartz. That's myself. And I also have created a technology called the Vibes, which is an acronym, and it stands for, repeat after me, vibrational,
Vibrational,
individualized,
individualized,
body
body
enhancement
enhancement
system.
system.
Vibe system. And really it's applied to everything we just talked about. Full body music activated vibrational sound technology that you lay on, and it puts your body into a harmonic resonance, not through the brain but through the living connective tissue matrix. And in 2007 I did an experiment where I was using these little energy vials, and I said, I had 1,000 vials. And I remember I was getting called around, I was traveling. I'm like, I can't take these through airports. I can't have them radiated. Like, they're going to break, they're going to get lost, they're going to, like, whatever. People are going to ask me what they are. I was like, what else can I use? And I was like, what about sound? I can just put that on I'm dating myself. I can put that on my iPod and travel around with headphones. And that's exactly what I did. I started experiments. So I converted my vials into audio files. And I conducted experiments where I eliminated my cat allergy protocol from one of my patients in his recording studio, and that was the beginning of my music company, Bioharmonic Technologies. And then we started formulating therapeutic music that was pleasant to the ear, but therapeutically aligned with the connective tissue. And one of the interesting questions you have to ask yourself as a formulator is, okay, because I also started developing biofeedback systems at the same time. So biofeedback, I'm working one-on-one. What's going on with Dr. Christina? And then number two is, how do I make, I'm dating myself, a CD that can affect everybody. One recording that is going to affect everybody. So I said, delivery system. I need, what are some things that are consistent across the board with all of humanity? And there's some specific mathematics that I use that is the highway and delivery system for the living connective tissue matrix. And from that place, we add brainwave states, we add sacred geometry, we add mathematical ratios, we add different physiological energetic signatures to formulate sonic ceuticals programs that can be created for somatic processes, for doing three things. These were my intentions. How do you clear cellular memory? How do you release shock and trauma? And how do you bring the body into an almost instantaneous, deep parasympathetic response? And you do that through full body harmonic rhythmic expression, and you can listen to it through the ears, and you can feel it through the body, through every single cell. And there's other sound beds out there. I'm sure everybody's hearing about the sound beds, but it's not about, anybody can make a bed vibrate. Okay, you can go online for $1,000. You can make your bed vibrate. But what are you going to? But how are you going to? What are you making it vibrate with? And you could throw some frequencies behind music and say you're a frequency shaman. You can do that as well too. But we've been literally I've been researching frequencies since 2007, and I've been in clinical practice exclusively using energetic techniques and technology since 2000, reversing chronic illness. I used to teach actually in Colorado at a naturopathic school, pathophysiology and how it relates to bioenergetic technologies. Really amazing. I just found that curriculum. It's like a 200-page manual. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote this. So, I mean, this is my background. And then I wrote this book, which is an incredible book. It talks about the top 10 ways on how to reverse aging and degeneration using sound, light, frequency, and vibration. And you know, I'm excited. Any day now, it's going to be live on Audible, the audiobook. I'm really excited to announce that. It's in final review, so stay tuned for that. But really, these technologies, they're called the Vibe systems, and they're self-empowerment tools for a very simple equation. Because people always say, I go to shows all the time, they're like, Dr. Schwartz, you're the expert. You tell me, what's your favorite? They're all my favorite. It doesn't matter what my favorite is. It's an interdimensional portal, meaning what dimensional reality are you choosing to vibrationally align yourself with? So here's the equation. I don't have any of my information with me. Actually, I do have a vibe sitting right there. We're gonna have to get, but my materials are inside of there. But I have a music menu, and we have 7 different albums, 42 different tracks, and really you can scan through there. And I want you to say, like, what do you want now? This is the question. When you come into Dr. Christina's office, when you're sitting in your house, when you're going anywhere, what do you want right now? I want peace. I want money. I want to be out of pain. I just want to get away from my spouse. I need a break from my children. I need a new job. Whatever, I don't know. Whatever is coming through. What do you want in this moment right now? It's a ceremony in this dimensional space where you are. And then we match up the music to that intention. You put your headphones on, you lay down on the vibe, and you breathe and you surrender and you let go and you allow the mathematics coupled with your intention to literally realign your connective tissue to align into a new dimensional reality of your choosing.
Can I give a visual example for my visual people? What he basically just described is like if you've ever seen cymatics where you put like sand on a plate and then they turn on a certain frequency and it turns into this beautiful geometric design. That's what the technology is doing. It's doing it within your body. It's helping you to realign into a harmonic frequency state.
Yes, it's a cymatic plate, and we are the water. So everybody's like, hey, can you people always ask me, okay, so if you haven't checked out our Instagram, Bioharmonic Technologies, Bioharmonic_technologies, it's our new site. We just posted some amazing videos. My amazing new social media manager created one of those cymatic light devices and has been playing our music through it. And this is the first time I have seen my music formulated through like in a cymatic expression. And cell cleanser is an anti-inflammatory detox protocol. It's the most beautiful thing. And we have it up there. Like I watched it. I watched it for 20 minutes. I just watched it on loop for like 20 minutes, just looking at the shapes. And I'm like, that is vibrating into our connective tissue. And that through that harmonic resonance, it brings your body into harmonic balance. And so he's going to start posting. It's a super cool design. It was, and not just that it was a cool design, but it was beautiful. It was harmonic. And so, these are this is what we're putting in your body, because the vibe is essentially the petri dish, is the cymatic plate, and we are the water. And so when we put ourselves on the plate and we start putting harmonic resonance into the body, we create something awesome. So
well, I love this conversation and I could talk to you for hours, but I also know that you have a lot of stuff on your plate coming up and to do. If people wanted to find out more about this, and I'll get a link from him and I'll put it on my resources tab for you in my Instagram. But if people wanted to find out more, where would you direct them?
Okay, perfect. Website, bioharmonictechnologies.com. Bioharmonictechnologies.com. And there we have, go to our videos and resources page, actually. We got videos, you can sign up as an affiliate, you can purchase a Vibe, all that stuff. And then, hola. One of our team members just showed up here. I'm on an Instagram Live. So and then also go to our Instagram, Bioharmonic_Technologies. Also follow me personally, Dr. Vibe, DRVIBE, Dr. Vibe on Instagram, Dr. Stephen Schwartz. We have an amazing YouTube channel, Bioharmonic Technologies. And also follow my Instagram, Read Primal Resonance. That's my book Instagram. We're not that active on it, but we're gonna be growing that coming up. And really, I invite you to read my book or pick up the audio. And I'm making this is for real, okay? If it does not change your life, I'll give you your money back. When I left Colorado and I wrote this book, I read it and I put it down in 2015, the book came out. And I remember saying to myself, this book is amazing. And I said, I stand behind every single word on this book. And I said, I want to sell 10 million books. Not so much about the book, about selling 10 million books, making $10 million.
Getting the idea into society.
There's 10 million people in the world that are now buying into this. And when COVID hit, I tried to record my audiobook, and that was the first time I read my book again 5 years later. And it was more relevant in 2020 than it was when I wrote it in 2015. And the first chapter in the book is called A New Epidemic in America. And it talks about chronic systemic inflammation, and it describes COVID, period. So, I'm a futurist. And now we just finally got it out on audiobook, had to re-record it for various reasons. But this book is amazing. And I really want to get it out there. And then really, I invite you guys to pick up a Vibe. Change your vibe, change your life. They are truly interdimensional portals for your living space. And they're going to make everybody's job easier. Like if you can show up into Dr. Christina's practice and be like, oh, I vibed today already. Okay. And then you're like, oh, great. Your intersegmental dysfunction is easily just like going back in these other areas. It's great.
Imagine if our habit after coming home from work was to go lay down on a frequency regulator instead of gluing ourselves to the TV to turn our brain off.
I love what you said. People ask me this question. I'm sorry not to interrupt, but I'm excited to share this with you. People always ask me, Dr. Schwartz, what are you going for with the Vibe? And you know what I tell them? It's the next TV. And, I don't even own it. I haven't watched TV for a long time. Since I moved to California, really. But really, at the end of the day, instead of being programmed by the networks, you can program your network on your vibe and align yourself into your story, into the story that you want to create for yourself, and not be subjected to whatever is being pumped into your subconscious mind and really into your connective tissue. So one last thing I'd like to share, just on a frequency medicine perspective. There's something very magical that happens. We talked about one magical equation is aligning your intentions with your connective tissue, with your body. That's how you clear cellular memory. In my book, I refer to it as the genie's lamp phenomenon. The mind, the body, and your mind is the genie. Your body is the lamp. Your intentions. Oh no, your intentions is the genie. Anyhow, you rub the lamp, you get the wishes. But I wanted to share with you though is there's an overlap between what you hear. 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz is normal human hearing range. But when you go down into 0.5 hertz, which is delta brainwave states, or even lower, to 100 hertz, that's what you feel. And so there's this magical overlap between 20 and 100 hertz, between what you can hear and what you can feel. And if you look at these special frequencies, the Schumann frequency, the phi ratio, some of these all these frequencies are like 40 hertz and lower, 20 hertz and lower. The core frequencies of healing exist in these subaudible ranges. And this is specifically why I'm not doing hypersonic sound, but I'm doing hyposonic, very low frequencies to really vibrate that connective tissue at the level of the fundamentals, like our brainwave states. I mean, think about it. We heal in delta, we heal in theta. So these are low frequency ranges. Vibrate them into your body, and instead of just hearing them through your ears, you're entraining your nervous system through your connective tissue with them, and I guarantee you're going to see magic.
I love that. Like, just something that I really hope the world starts to adapt more. And that's why I wanted to do this with you. Like, I just want the knowledge to be out there and for people to know that this stuff exists and areas that they can explore and people they can talk to and ask questions to, because being on a health journey is daunting sometimes, and you can often feel lost. And also, like, different things work for different people. But one of the things I love about the frequency and what we're talking about is literally it works for everybody because we are all made of frequency, and that's just like fundamental physics. So
Especially
amazing.
now more since COVID, since 2020, the planetary vibration has raised. So now more than ever, we're actually not finding that it's like it's going to work for everybody, but it's kind of become more of a necessity because we're finding that the physical based medicines just we're not as dense anymore.
Nope.
So
And I'll also just say, when I have people do emotional work or nervous system work, they need less nutrition. So just let that like settle into your mind of like, if you've been on all the supplements and all the things, if you do the frequency work, which ties into emotional work as well, then sometimes you don't need as much matter to influence your body. So
right.
just some fun concepts for you guys to explore. His book, Primal Resonance, would be a great place to learn more. Will you repeat your website for people one more time?
Bioharmonic Technologies, IES.com. Bioharmonic Technologies. And yeah, come vibe with us.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, especially when you're like in another state speaking at a conference. Really appreciate your time. And if you guys are interested and you liked what we talk about, comment on the recording I'm going to post and ask questions. And then we can always do another one of these because we do these for you. So thank you so much, Dr. Schwartz. Have a blast speaking at your conference. And I will look forward to the next time we get to chat.
Me as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Doc.
Bye.